Hello, my senior AI podcast listening friends and supporters. I'm Mike Hayes, and I'm here to guide you to the time of your life with AI reasonability. That's what I'm doing every day. Welcome to your daily 2-minute briefing at mikesai.com, where we turn Overwhelm into AI podcast listening explainers to empower you, to amplify your voice, to be heard and understood by anybody you want to have listen to you. I just asked AI to turn my wife's new car manual into an AI podcast for her. It took about 5 minutes so she can listen and learn and understand how to use her new car while she's on the go. Folks, are you ready to roll the AI and the time of your life? Let's go.
Today, we're going to cut through all that AI hype. Here's a simple, safe way for you to start. So, are you feeling totally overwhelmed by all the AI noise? You're not alone. There's a simpler path. We're talking about a strategy that puts you in the driver's seat. You get to learn without any pressure. It's all built around this idea called Reasonology, basically using AI to find the voice of reason. And the whole strategy? It's just 2 super simple steps. That's it. Let's dive in. So, step 1. It all starts with a simple daily check-in, and you're going to use a tool called Gemini. Just think of Gemini like your morning coffee. It's a low-pressure spot to explore whatever's on your mind. A great way to think about it is like a faucet. You can turn it on, turn it up, or turn it off. And that's the key takeaway here. You are always the one in complete control, period. Okay, on to step 2. Once you're comfortable chatting, it's time for the follow-up. This is where you use NotebookLM. Think of it as your personal studio to make those ideas a reality. So, to recap, Gemini is for the daily chat. NotebookLM is for building on your absolute best thoughts. See, this isn't just about learning tech. The real goal here is to amplify your wisdom. And this all leads to abundance, which just means having more control over the noise, not adding to it. It really does come back to this one powerful idea. This is how you get to that abundance. So, what's your first step? It's super simple. Just open up Gemini and say hello.
You know, our mission here is, well, it's always the same, really. We take that huge stack of information that you're probably staring at,
Right.
and we just try to strip away all the noise, all the static, and hopefully what you're left with is something refined, something you can actually use, actionable knowledge.
And today, that feels more necessary than ever. We're tackling, I think, what is probably the biggest challenge for anyone trying to learn right now.
Oh, absolutely. Especially with generative AI. I mean, how do you even find a path to getting good at this stuff without just completely drowning?
You're drowning in tools, in tutorials, in, conflicting advice. That anxiety is very real.
It is.
And that's why our deep dive today is based on some really targeted material that's from a broadcast called Gemini First, checking in and following up.
And this isn't just some generic tech blog post.
No, not at all. This is specific content that was curated by the Senior AI Foundation. And their whole focus is building AI literacy for, well, an older, more experienced demographic.
Which is such a critical audience. And what we found in these sources, what really jumped out at me was this concept of a mandated safe path.
Yes.
It's like a blueprint that's intentionally designed to cut through all that noise, that paralyzing overwhelm we were just talking about.
And so our mission today is to really pull apart the core insights from that. We need to understand why this seemingly restrictive 2-tool strategy, just Gemini and NotebookLM, why is that presented as a form of liberation, not a limitation?
Right. It feels counterintuitive at first.
It does.
Yeah.
But the sources lay out this 2-step process, and it's all about instilling confidence and, maybe more importantly, control.
And it all starts with this really powerful philosophical idea they introduced. They call it reasonology.
Reasonology. It's the act of using AI, specifically to find the voice of reason.
Okay, let's unpack this. Reasonology. I love that term because it's not passive. It demands a certain kind of behavior from you, the user.
It really does.
You're not just, playing with a large language model. You're demanding that it make sense of things for you. You're using the AI to filter the entire world.
Precisely. And that, right there, it flips the whole script. Instead of you feeling sort of subjected to whatever the machine spits out, the user, you adopt this mindset of a critical investigator. You're not using the AI to generate something that just looks cool. You're using it to help you synthesize complex, often conflicting information and to structure the knowledge you already have.
And that's how you avoid the chaos.
That is how you avoid the chaos.
So the structure of this safe path, it's actually, on the surface, deceptively simple. It gives us a perfect roadmap for today's conversation.
It's a two-step approach, and it's all about establishing a kind of mental clarity.
Okay, so step one.
The first step is what they call the check-in. And this mandates starting your day and really every single exploration session exclusively with Gemini. That's your daily low-pressure interaction zone.
Starting block. And then the essential second part is the follow-up.
The follow-up, this is where you take the really valuable stuff, the distilled output from that check-in.
Right.
And you move it over. And you develop it into something permanent, something organized, using NotebookLM.
And the sources just boil the entire philosophy down to 5 words.
Checking in and following up are the 5 words that lead to abundance.
We absolutely have to dive into what they mean by abundance because I don't think it's what most people in tech think it is.
Not at all.
All right. Let's start with that philosophical foundation.
Yeah, we have to start with the why behind this whole thing. Because on the surface, telling a learner, especially in a space that's moving as fast as AI.
Right.
Telling them you can only use these 2 specific tools and you have to use them in this very strict order. It just sounds completely counterintuitive.
It sounds anti-innovation almost. My first thought is, are we worried about, training seniors or any new learner on tools that might be obsolete in 18 months? Why this specific, strict 2-tool structure?
And that is an excellent and I think a very necessary challenge to that idea. The reason is purely pedagogical. It's all about cognitive load and creating stability.
Cognitive load, that's the key, isn't it?
That's exactly it. The primary enemy this entire strategy is designed to fight isn't the technology, it's information overwhelm.
Okay.
When you're new to AI, just the sheer volume of options is paralyzing. You have ChatGPT, Claude, Perplexity, Midjourney, NotebookLM, Gemini. The list goes on and on.
A new learner ends up spending more time just trying to figure out which tool they should be using than actually learning the core concepts.
You've hit the nail on the head. It's the classic paradox of choice, and it leads straight to paralysis.
So by mandating this safe path, the Senior AI Foundation is essentially making the first and often hardest decision for you.
Exactly. They eliminate that decision-making step, which is, for so many beginners, the biggest mental hurdle. They're creating a structured learning environment where the focus isn't on exploring every little feature of every single model out there.
The focus is just on utility.
Utility, comfort, and most importantly, achieving that state of reasonology. The whole strategy is built to prevent that all too common feeling of, I have 20 tabs open and I don't even know where to begin.
So let's drill down a bit more on reasonology. If we're telling people to use AI to find the voice of reason, we need some concrete examples. What does that actually look like in terms of a prompt?
Okay, good question. It's really about moving beyond a simple informational query. Think about the difference between let's say, a generic prompt and a reasonology-driven one.
All right, give us the generic one first.
A generic prompt might be something like, tell me about local government budgets.
Okay.
Gemini is just going to return a flood of general information. You'll get definitions, maybe some history, different types of funding. It's novel, sure, it's new information, but it's also completely overwhelming.
A wall of text. Now, how would you apply reasonology to that exact same subject?
A reasonology-driven prompt would be much more specific and goal-oriented. Something like, I have read these 2 conflicting local news articles on the recent school bond proposal.
Okay, so you're giving it context.
You're giving it sources. You can continue. Article A claims it will raise taxes by 5% but deliver better schools. Article B claims the funds are going to be diverted to administrative bloat. Please synthesize both of these viewpoints and extract the 3 core rational points of disagreement. And this is the important part. Specifically, omit any emotional or inflammatory language used by the authors.
Ah, I see it now. You're forcing the AI to become a filter. An impartial synthesizer, not just a search engine that brings you back 10 blue links.
You've transformed the AI from a simple generator of text into a structure of thought.
A structure of thought, I like that.
You are demanding sense-making. You're demanding distilled clarity. And that process, that distillation, is the key to preventing overwhelm. You're asking for a clean glass of water, not to be blasted by a fire hose.
And that disciplined use of the tool leads us right into this unique and I think really critical definition of abundance that the source provides.
Yes, this is a huge pivot point in their philosophy.
Because when you and I hear abundance in the tech world, our minds immediately go to data lakes, infinite processing power, maybe endless financial returns.
Right. More is more.
Yeah. But the source completely rejects that idea.
Completely. For them, abundance is explicitly not about having more noise. It is about having more control over the noise.
That is such a profound redefinition for the information age we live in. Abundance becomes a state of mastery, not just the state of accumulation.
It shifts the entire power dynamic, doesn't it?
Totally. Abundance isn't measured by how much input the AI can throw at you. It's measured by the quality of the output, combined with your ability or agency to manage that flow.
Let's make that concrete. Imagine a user trying to plan a complex family trip. You've got multiple generations, different needs.
Oh, that's the ultimate noise scenario.
It is. The noise is conflicting flight times, it's dietary restrictions, it's a dozen different reviews for every attraction, budget constraints. If you try to tackle that with a traditional search engine, you are immediately overwhelmed. You have zero control.
Just a sea of browser tabs.
Exactly. But if you use this Reasonology approach, first, you ask Gemini to synthesize, say, the best 3 flight options based on proximity and price for everyone. Then, and this is key, you immediately move those clean results into NotebookLM to structure a budget. You are maintaining control every step of the way.
The abundance comes from the feeling of capability.
That's it. It's the feeling of having all the necessary information distilled into a framework that you can actually manage.
And that idea that the person who controls the flow of information is the one who feels abundant and confident, that applies to everything. It's not just about AI. That's about controlling your email inbox, your task list, your social media feed.
And this Gemini-first strategy is designed to hardwire that feeling of control directly into the user's first interactions with this powerful technology.
Which is so important for the specific demographic the Senior AI Foundation is focused on. That broadcast has this great line, 65 is the new 40.
Which is a real statement of intent.
It absolutely is. It elevates the entire mission beyond just, basic tech support. It frames adopting this technology not as something remedial, but as something genuinely aspirational.
Absolutely. The Foundation's mission isn't just about helping seniors catch up. That's not it at all. It's about helping them find their own voices and then use this technology to amplify the lifetime of experience they already have.
The wisdom they've already accumulated.
The wisdom they've already gained over decades on things like civic engagement, local history, specific crafts, you name it, and providing a production mechanism to share it with their families and their communities.
So the tech is really just a lever. Their life experience is the substance, the actual value.
Right.
And this check-in and follow-up structure is the mechanism that translates all that wisdom into actionable digital content that can actually go out and have an impact.
It is entirely about production, not consumption. The whole structure is built to minimize frustration and cognitive load, which allows the focus to stay where it should be, on the value that the user is bringing to the table.
Okay, that sets the philosophical stage perfectly. Now let's get into the nuts and bolts. Step 1, the check-in.
The check-in. And it has to start with Gemini.
Right. This is where that essential feeling of low-stakes control has to be built before you can even think about moving on to production.
And that choice of Gemini is very, very deliberate. The sources describe it as the safest, simplest place to start.
And that word safest is key. It's psychological safety as much as it is technical safety.
I think it's mostly psychological. The simplicity of the interface is what guarantees that the barrier to entry is just about zero.
It's just a chat box.
It's just a chat box. There are no complicated source uploads to worry about, no need to define a knowledge base, no advanced settings to tweak. It's just pure, unstructured conversation.
And the analogy they use for this low-pressure start is so important. They say, think of Gemini like your morning coffee with a friend.
It's a perfect analogy because it immediately frames the required mindset. It should feel casual, it should be expected, a part of your daily routine, and it's non-committal.
You're not starting some major heavy research project.
No. You're just having a daily conversation where the goal is exploration and maybe some immediate utility. It completely removes that anxiety that comes with thinking, oh, I have to learn a new software program today.
And the specific types of interactions they encourage really reinforce this low-pressure feel. They literally tell you to share random thoughts. You don't need a perfectly formulated prompt. You don't need an academically rigorous query. Just that's what's on your mind.
And the examples they give are all about immediate personal utility. Things like asking questions about health, maybe trying to understand a new symptom or a medication, or drafting the first few thoughts for a difficult email you have to write.
Or summarizing a long news article you just don't have the time to read fully.
Or even brainstorming a name for a community bake sale.
Yeah.
It's all about small, immediate problems.
So this check-in phase is purely exploratory. It's about getting preliminary input, but with absolutely no expectation that what you create is permanent or needs to be formally structured.
It teaches the user to rely on the tool for these simple daily augmentation tasks first. But to do that safely, you have to internalize this idea of control, which brings us to the core mechanism of step one.
The faucet analogy.
The faucet analogy. This is how you learn to dictate the flow of information.
This feels like the absolute foundation of their teaching method. The user has to realize that they, not the technology, are the one holding the power.
Yes. If you start to feel overwhelmed, you have to know instinctively that you have the immediate agency to just stop the flow.
So let's dedicate some real time to each of the three actions here: on, up, and off. Because the sources say that mastering these three simple actions is basically mastering AI literacy.
Okay, let's start with turn it on. This is all about overcoming that initial inertia.
The blank page.
The blank prompt screen. It's just initiating the conversation. Even just saying hello or I'm thinking about gardening today. For a beginner, that blank screen is the first wall they hit. So simply tapping the faucet to get the first drip started is the most important first step.
And the beauty of starting in a tool like Gemini is that the output is so low stakes. If my first prompt is terrible, if I ask something vague like, what is the internet? And Gemini gives me a 5-page history of TCP/IP.
Right.
I haven't wasted hours of my time. I just hit the back button and start over. No harm, no foul.
Precisely. The on action is really about the ritualization of the check-in. The advice is to do this every single day, to make the interaction a habit.
Like checking the weather.
Or brewing coffee. That consistency builds familiarity.
Yeah.
And familiarity erodes that initial fear that the tool is just too complex to even approach.
Okay, so that's turn it on. Next we have turn it up. This is where things get more interesting. This is the process of iterative prompting.
This is where you learn how to refine the output until it meets your own reasonology standards. If you ask for, say, a summary of a local town hall meeting, and the AI just gives you a dry list of bullet points.
Which it probably will on the first try.
It probably will. You have to know that you have the power to turn it up by demanding specific refinements.
Give us a specific example. How do you turn up the faucet in that scenario?
Okay, so you get the generic list. You turn it up by replying, "Thank you." Now, please reorganize those bullet points into a 3-paragraph narrative, write it in the style of an official memorandum, and please identify the single most controversial decision that was discussed.
Wow. Okay. That pushes the AI way beyond simple regurgitation.
It forces it into structured analysis. It teaches you, the learner, that the machine is essentially a passive servant. It's just waiting for you to give it increasingly sophisticated instructions.
And that really is the core difference between a beginner and an advanced user, isn't it? The ability to turn that faucet up effectively.
Absolutely. The sources frame this as learning to manage the flow rate. A gentle turn gets you a basic answer. A sharp, deliberate turn gets you complex, synthesized output that requires real cognitive work from the model.
Which brings us to the last and maybe the most crucial action for fighting that information overwhelm. Turn it off.
Knowing when to stop.
Knowing when to take a break or just reset the entire conversation.
This is the absolute antidote to the doom scrolling of information. Generative AI can produce endless amounts of text. It will never get tired.
Yeah.
Without the discipline to turn the faucet off, the user is basically guaranteed to become overwhelmed. The turn it off action is the realization that the session is ephemeral, unless you choose to save it.
That is psychologically immense. It teaches the learner that you are not obligated to read all 3,000 words that Gemini just generated for you. You can just say, that's enough for now, close the chat, and the learning stops right there. There's no penalty. There's no consequence.
It reinforces your agency. You stop the conversation and you stop the obligation. This low-stakes interaction means if you don't like the answer, you can just close the browser or start a new chat, practicing that on action all over again.
So this cycle of control on, up, off is the practice ground.
It's the training area.
So we can look at the faucet analogy as the necessary training wheels. It's like learning to drive in an empty parking lot before you even think about hitting the highway.
That's a perfect analogy. Gemini is the parking lot. You have to prove to yourself through that consistent daily check-in that you can control the speed and the direction of the information flow.
Before you're introduced to the complexity of actual production.
And that control is not automatic. The source is very clear on this. It's a disciplined habit. And the strategy insists that until you are completely comfortable with this check-in phase, you are not ready for step 2.
And that sequential structure is so critical. It deliberately prevents the beginner from jumping straight into the deep end, right into the production phase, which requires a much higher cognitive load and long-term organizational skills.
And that brings us to the critical transition point. You've mastered the exploratory phase. You've established that daily check-in habit. You've internalized the faucet of control.
Okay.
Only now do we introduce NotebookLM. Only now do we move into what they call the production studio.
The production studio. I mean, the name itself signals a major shift. The coffee shop chat is over. This is a professional, structured environment that's focused on high-stakes creation.
The primary difference is functionality. NotebookLM is about structure, permanence, and refinement. And the key technical differentiator, the thing that really makes it a studio, is its capacity for source grounding.
Source grounding. Okay, that's the kind of technical depth our listeners need. What does source grounding mean in the context of this safe path, and why is it so essential for the follow-up step?
Source grounding means that the AI model inside NotebookLM is restricted. It can only draw information from the specific sources that you, the user, upload.
So your own documents.
Your documents, transcripts of interviews, notes you've taken, web pages you've saved. This directly addresses a massive concern for the Senior AI Foundation, which is accuracy and, the problem of hallucination.
So let me see if I have this right. The check-in in Gemini might generate some general ideas or broad suggestions from the whole internet. But when you move a good idea over into NotebookLM, you upload your own expertise, your personal documents, historical records, family notes, whatever, and you force the AI to build its output only from that controlled, pure set of information, your signal.
Exactly. You ensure that your signal is not contaminated by the general noise of the internet. It dramatically elevates the quality of the output, and it guarantees that the wisdom you're amplifying is based on your authentic experience and research.
It makes the content genuinely authoritative. This is like the technical implementation of Reasonology.
It is. It's where the philosophy becomes a feature.
So the whole function of the follow-up is taking that great idea you had during the check-in, that, good note jotted on a napkin, and formalizing it, turning it into a highly structured, permanent deliverable.
And the sources are very clear about the kinds of outputs they envision. They emphasize tangible, lasting things. We aren't just generating more ephemeral text, we are creating resources.
They mention creating a podcast, which in this context doesn't just mean recording audio. It implies creating organized, structured scripts, a series of long-form connected thoughts.
Right. Or they mention creating a guide. A guide is, by its very nature, structured documentation. It's designed to help other people. It requires chapters, headings, a logical flow, all things that NotebookLM is built to help you organize.
And then the ultimate goal, a permanent plan. That implies something actionable, information that is retained and that feeds directly into a broader community goal. This permanence is what turns an idea into an asset.
The fact that the information now lives in a structured notebook where it's ready for you to revise it and deploy it, that's the game changer.
So let's connect this directly back to that idea of amplifying wisdom. Let's say we have a retired teacher who has decades of experience teaching local history.
Okay.
The check-in in Gemini allows her to just casually brainstorm curriculum ideas. What are some interesting events from 1950s town history? That kind of thing.
Low-stakes exploration.
Exactly. But the follow-up in the production studio, that's where she can upload her own old lesson plans, her lecture notes, maybe even scan newspaper clippings from the era.
Her personal archive. Her source material.
And then she can ask NotebookLM to generate a cohesive, structured 10-part community lecture series based only on those source documents she uploaded.
That is the entire loop in action. The life experience is digitized, it's organized, it's source grounded, and the result is a robust, genuinely valuable community asset. NotebookLM is the structure that preserves her signal and filters out all the external noise.
Because it literally can't introduce external noise that contradicts the sources she provided.
It's designed not to.
So let's synthesize these two steps before we get to the really interesting part, the broader financial implications. We have that 5-word mantra.
Checking in and following up.
The check-in is the daily habit. It's the low-pressure conversation, the practice of controlling the faucet. It's ephemeral, it's exploratory, and it uses the general knowledge base of Gemini to find an initial direction.
And the follow-up is the purposeful action. It's the structured creation. It's the commitment to permanence. It demands control. It utilizes source grounding. And it ensures the absolute best outputs from the check-in are formalized into lasting assets.
And what this does is create two very distinct mental spaces for the learner.
Yes. You have a casual sandbox for learning and exploration, which is Gemini, and you have a focused workshop for creation and organization, which is NotebookLM.
And by clearly separating those two tasks, you avoid the mental fatigue of trying to explore and structure at the same time.
Which is the fastest possible route to overwhelm.
It's what I call digital task contamination. You don't bring the messiness of your brainstorming session into the clean room where you're doing the final production.
That's a great way to put it. You intentionally filter your input before you commit your resources, your time, your effort, the permanence of the project to the output.
Okay, this is where it gets really interesting for me. Because this strategy, it's not just a personal learning framework. It connects directly to measurable community goals.
And a pathway to financial sustainability. This is the ultimate so what for the organizations that are adopting this.
The structured output from this process has real-world financial implications. This is a fascinating link between AI literacy and nonprofit funding.
It's a huge one.
So what's the critical detail here that connects them?
The critical detail is that this two-step process, by focusing the output exclusively on things like education and safety, helps the senior groups and their community organizations qualify for Google Ad grants.
Okay, now that is a big deal. Google Ad grants are a massive resource for nonprofits, free advertising credit, but they're notoriously strict about the quality and the focus of the content they'll support.
Extremely strict.
So why would a strategy centered on these two specific tools, Gemini and NotebookLM, actually facilitate getting one of those grants?
Because the grants are specifically for nonprofits that can demonstrate a clear, positive, and non-exploitative educational impact on their community. They require measurable dedication, they require high-quality content, and often policy transparency.
And disorganized, rambling content that's just generated by open-ended chatbot prompts, the kind of noise you get from a user who hasn't mastered the faucet, that is not going to meet that bar.
Not even close. If you're just using a tool like Gemini for general brainstorming, your output is scattered, it's often inaccurate because of hallucination, it lacks the structure you need for any kind of formal documentation. A grant committee needs to see evidence of thoughtful, safe, educational content.
So the very structure that's imposed by the follow-up step in NotebookLM is what generates the necessary proof. It generates the documentation.
It is a documentation mechanism. Let's take an example. Say the community group uses this strategy to create a local disaster preparedness guide, a classic safety topic.
Right.
The use of NotebookLM ensures that guide is organized, it's source grounded, maybe using only official documents from the city that the user uploaded, and is presented with a clear instructional flow. That structured, high-quality deliverable is exactly what grant administrators are looking for.
In other words, the strategy itself forces the output to be high quality, to be structured, authoritative, and focused on community benefit. That inherent discipline is the key that unlocks the funding.
And that focus on reasonology, finding the voice of reason, ensures the content is authoritative and educational, not just promotional or scattered. The organized guides and reports you can generate with NotebookLM are basically grant-ready collateral.
So it turns casual learning into a measurable, fundable asset for the entire community. The discipline of checking in and following up isn't just about personal growth anymore.
No, it's about establishing the financial sustainability for the organization itself. And that is a very powerful incentive to stick with the program.
It provides this tangible, real-world reason for adopting the strategy that goes way beyond just getting comfortable with AI.
It creates a direct pathway to community benefit that is tied to disciplined information use.
And, we can generalize this approach for anyone listening right now, the learner. You might be tackling a totally different complex subject. Maybe it's learning a new programming language or mastering complex corporate policy or even starting a big history project.
Absolutely. This check-in and follow-up model is a brilliant universal framework for structured learning. All it's doing is separating the ideation phase from the production phase.
Right. If we look at it broadly, the check-in is analogous to your casual exploration. It's reading the preliminary material, it's low-stakes brainstorming sessions, it's watching some introductory tutorials.
It's all about gathering the raw, messy inputs without any commitment.
And the follow-up is your serious production phase. That's analogous to outlining your paper, creating flashcards, writing detailed summaries, or building a slide deck.
It's the high-stakes retention and production part of learning, where structure is everything, and the goal is to create permanent, usable knowledge.
This raises an important question then. Why does simply separating casual exploration from serious production improve the quality and retention of knowledge so dramatically?
I think it's because by clearly delineating those two mental tasks, you drastically reduce your mental fatigue and you improve your focus. Your brain knows when it's time to play in the sandbox, the check-in.
And when it's time to work in the workshop.
The follow-up, exactly. You only dedicate the serious mental effort of structuring and verification when you've already decided that the input is actually worth keeping.
You're intentionally eliminating a huge amount of unnecessary cognitive load. When you finally sit down to work in your production studio, you're working with distilled, valuable ideas, not a messy pile of raw notes you copied from 10 different places.
Which brings us right back to the central idea of the whole thing. Abundance is control over the noise. You use Gemini to filter out the static, and then you intentionally use NotebookLM to create the pure signal. The synthesis of those two tools gives you a single, clear path to productive and sustained learning.
This deep dive has really clarified the highly intentional structure that the Senior AI Foundation has mandated. It's a really smart, focused approach. It leverages two specific tools to create both psychological safety and tangible community benefit.
And to just quickly recap the path for everyone, we started with that foundational philosophy of reasonology, using AI to find the voice of reason. And that crucial redefinition of abundance as control over noise, which is the direct answer to information overwhelm.
Then we established that path to mastery in step 1, the safe, simple start in Gemini, the check-in. This is your daily chat where you, the learner, internalize that faucet of control. You learn to manage the flow of information by turning it on, up, and off completely at will.
And finally, we discussed that purposeful creation that happens in step 2 in NotebookLM, the follow-up, the production studio. This is the phase where wisdom gets amplified, gets formalized using source grounding, and it gets structured into real community assets that can even lead to external funding.
The value here is just undeniable. It's control over the noise, it's the amplification of wisdom, and it's a clear, non-overwhelming pathway to feeling confident and, yes, abundant in this really complex new landscape.
And the brilliance of it all is how accessible that very first step is. They've reduced the barrier to entry to basically zero.
Which brings us to the immediate call to action that the source provides. It's aimed at breaking that initial barrier, that inertia, and it's simply this. Go open Gemini and just say hello. That is your first check-in.
That's it. That is the first gentle tap of the faucet. It's the start of building that necessary habit of control.
And as we close out this deep dive, we want to leave you, as always, with a final provocative thought. And this one stems directly from that core philosophy that abundance is control over the noise, and that deep focus on amplifying wisdom for community impact.
So if you were to adopt this check-in and follow-up strategy, starting today, if you think about your own unique life experience, your unique expertise, what is the one piece of wisdom that you are ready to amplify to your community? What is the one guide, the one comprehensive plan, or the one educational resource that only your decades of experience can produce?
Take control of the noise, find your reason, and start producing. We'll see you next time on The Deep Dive.
The Senior AI Foundation Education Program is here to ensure you never feel overwhelmed, just empowered. Go to AIPodcastListening.com and subscribe, and let's keep learning together.